Hi, I'm here today with Patrick Gantert. Patrick, it's great having you into the Apothecary Gallery today.
Yeah, thanks.
It's been a pretty great show. And I just wanted to ask you a couple questions. So you are the co-founder of the Stadium Alley Gallery in Brooklyn?
Yep.
And I was just curious how that becoming a curator has kind of influenced your process of making art.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has a lot. I don't know that we necessarily describe ourselves as curators. I mean, I think that's kind of like, that's part of it, I guess, but we usually think about it more in terms of like organizers or producers or some kind of other terminology for it, because I was actually having this conversation this morning, but there's like a weird, I think there's a way that people understand curating, and it's become something that's really like, it's sort of ubiquitous as a term, so people apply it to all kinds of different things. It's like you can curate your sandwich, you know, where it's like, there's like, you have options to customize everything, and so people feel like they're choosing or they're creating some kind of like, I don't know, like a curated group of things, whether it's like Tumblr or whatever. There's all this stuff that exists that people are allowed to like just make, you know, and make themselves. And so I think we usually think about it more in terms of yeah, like being organizers of a show, organizers of an artist, or something like that. And yeah, like to your point, I guess, yeah, I think it has influenced my own practice doing that, because I think you start to understand not only like how you think about other people's work, but how you think about organizing that work and where you can put it and what you can do with it. And I think like that idea about layout sort of leads into my own stuff, because it gives me a better sense of how I want things to look and a good sense for like how I'm going to photograph the show and document it. So yeah, definitely.
Would you be able to talk a little bit about your intentions with some of the sculptural work that you created for the show here at the Apothecary?
Yeah, like specifically the sculptural stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, the floor piece, right, is the sculptural piece.
Yeah, I suppose you can talk a bit about the drawings that you put in place too, because I guess more installation, not just necessarily sculptural, but you know, maybe the hat as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think about, usually when I make stuff, I think about it as like one whole thing. So if it's a show like this, I kind of think about everything as related, so they're not like a little separate pieces. I mean, it's like, obviously you can look at anything individually, but I think about I think about it as like a total installation. So the different pieces kind of play different parts. And I think specifically about the hat, it's sort of like I think of it a little bit as a character almost, or like a person, because the way that it's situated in the space, it's, if you walk up to it, it's sort of at like it's roughly like your body level. It sort of like sits right at your face. So I think it creates this sensation of like when you come up to it, it's like you're looking at something, you know, where it's like you're addressing something that would normally be on a person. So I think I don't know if everyone would, but logically make the connection to say, okay, this is a bodily thing, or this is related to a person, you know. So then I think you can sort of take it to like, why is it hanging, or what does it mean that it's here? So I think that part of the purpose for that is to set the tone that there is some kind of just like a personal part of the show. Because I don't necessarily think it has to be like a self-portrait, but I think there's something there that's like based in myself. I mean, it's my hat, and yeah. So I guess I think about that as like the main sort of piece that drives everything else, and I think it's meant to situate all this other stuff in that same kind of space of being like related to a person or related to someone specific. And so then it starts to like, other things I think start to break down. So like the piece on the floor is meant to be more of like, almost a landscape. So to set like an environment or a space or like hint at a location. So there's certain things that denote that. There's like air fresheners that are specific to New York. There's a vinyl piece that sort of evokes like a mountain. There's a broken dog harness, which I think, it's like, the dog harness a little bit hints more at like frustration, or aggression, or violence. But I think it's also like, you know, it's an animal. So then it's like you start to think about think it creates levels in that piece that are like, you know, there's height to it and it creates a depth to it. So I think that's meant to evoke like environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, you know, like the totality of the piece, I guess you read the other stuff as maybe like subsequent players in some kind of narrative. So, I mean, you know, there's a million ways to break something down, right? But I think that's the general overview.
Let's talk a little bit about your performance work, which you didn't do any for this, but I know you do quite a lot of performance work. Just interested in how rhythm and speed, from what I've seen in your work, kind of becomes an important characteristic of the performance.
Yeah.
And just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on that kind of play that rhythm and speed has with the kind of interlocking stories that you tell.
Yeah, for sure. I think speed especially is really important because I think a lot of the stories in it, if there is a story, or they're sort of like, they're nonsensical or they're really layered or they sort of bleed into each other in really illogical ways. So the performances are mostly meant to be things that take, you know, hundreds of like disparate concepts and experiences and try to condense them into one primarily spoken word thing. So I think part of doing that is, or it's like getting all that stuff to fit together is really difficult. So I think if you can sort of like take all those things and put them into a script and write it out. If you went and just read it to somebody, like verbatim from the script that you wrote, it wouldn't really work that well. So I guess for me, it was like, I've been doing it for a long time, and it was sort of like a long process of trying to figure out what the best way to mitigate that was, and like how when you're actually performing, what purpose does language actually serve, and where in the performances can you sort of start to like bring things in a way that's more not based like specifically in meaning or like in meaning that words have. So is there a way to communicate something with gesture, or is there a way to communicate something like you're saying with rhythm? So it might even be that to get to a different concept or to mark something as a different part of the story, it speeds up or slows down, or there's a different cadence to it, or you know, maybe it's repeated 3 times or something like that. So there's all these different sort of plays with language. But I think mostly it's because I'm trying to get it out really quickly and not forget things. That I noticed that I was having this natural tendency to like speed up my conversation. I think it's the alarm. I was having this tendency to like speed things up, you know, to get them done. And then I started to think, well, what if I could like harness that and make it something that instead of feeling awkward about it, that's actually like a part of it, you know, and that's something that you can use as a device or use as a medium instead of it being like a hindrance or a pain in the ass. So I think that's kind of where speed started to factor in. And I think about stuff like speed all the time because everything I feel like is moving really fast. Technology and culture and art, design, it's like everything has this like acceleration to it all the time. It's getting better, it's changing, and you're just sort of asked to like cope with it. So I think we're all subject to that, right? It's like you're in this like river of acceleration. So we're all affected by speed. So I think to me that's like, it's something I want to incorporate, and it doesn't necessarily always come in an explicit way. Like I think in this show, it's not like an overpowering part of it. But I think the performances for sure, that's like one of my main concerns.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Patrick, for taking time to answer those questions for me today.
Yeah, of course.
Good talk. I don't really know how to end this, but
that works.
Yeah, good talk. All right.